Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Fritz Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talk House podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talk House podcast. I'm Josh Modell. On this week's show, we've got two incredibly talented musicians whose main instruments sit slightly outside the typical band setup. Violinist Sarah Neufeld and harpist Mary Lattimore. Now, the way these two met, which is covered a bit in this conversation, is kind of a rock and roll dream. Lattimore went to see Neufeld's band, Arcade Fire, before they were huge stars, and they got to talking. When Lattimore mentioned that she'd be moving to Philadelphia soon, Neufeld and her bandmates asked Mary to perform with them. So her first time playing on stage outside a more classical setting was in front of a huge Arcade Fire crowd, and it gave Mary the performing bug. Now, both Neufeld and Lattimore have released fantastic records recently. Lattimore's Silver Ladders came out last year on the Ghostly International label, and it met with widespread acclaim. In the past, Lattimore has collaborated with the likes of Kurt Weill and Thurston Moore. On this record, she and her harp met with Neil Halstead of the band Slowdive, who added some hazy guitar textures to her beautiful, hypnotic sounds. Check out Sometimes He's in My Dreams. Now, Sarah Neufeld's brand new record, Detritus, was born via a collaboration with Canadian dancer Peggy Baker. Neufeld wrote the songs that would become this album to accompany Baker's choreography, and she even went on the road to accompany the dance performances. And she later went into the studio with help from her Arcade Fire bandmate Jeremy Gara and set to recording them. It's an incredible collection that blends her primary instrument with ambient electronics, drums, and other sounds. Check out a little bit of a track called The Top. In this conversation, Neufeld and Lattimore talk about the night they met and subsequent nights they don't remember, a harp that lives in Prague, writing music to accompany dance, and how a harp might actually help induce labor in an expecting mother. Enjoy.
I've had some interviews lately for my new album, and one time nobody was here with me, and I was just like, I'm just gonna be holding a screaming child, like trying to have a conversation.
How old is he now?
He's coming up on 6 weeks.
Oh, so very new.
Yeah, learning curve is just like vertical. Harder than when I learned snowboarding when I was 13.
Learning something new when you're in a pandemic lockdown is learning like big things is really amazing. You're creating such positive memories in this dark time, you know? It's great.
Yeah. It's weird being in New York and there's so much vaccination going on. I already feel like we're post the dark time, even though I know that's not really true, but there's this sense of optimism and so much movement. I get those daily emails from Cuomo and it's like, oh my God, that 43% of New Yorkers now, 43%, you know, it's just like, yeah.
That's awesome.
So you just said dark time and lockdown. I'm like, but that's over, Mary.
Yeah.
wait. No, it's not. And in Canada, you know, like my friends and family are all still pretty.
Is anybody getting vaxxed up there yet?
It's starting to happen.
Good.
Yeah, it's just a lot slower.
Your family can come meet the baby and stuff. I'm sure that's been kind of weird.
I know people that had kids just before whose grandparents still haven't met them. So I'm actually really lucky that my mom is able to. I mean, she's taking a huge jump. Like she's being very brave to, they all live on Vancouver Island, which I don't know if you've been up that way, but it's pretty like, it's its own little world. It takes a day even just to kind of get off the island, let alone fly to New York. And so I'm pretty impressed. She's willing to go the distance.
Your mama. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So you're in LA these days, right?
I am. Yeah. I'm going to actually go see my parents coming up for Mother's Day. And I just haven't seen my parents since 2019, which is crazy. So
yeah,
very exciting. And to like get on a plane and stuff, kind of bonkers. I agree with you though. Like things definitely feel so much lighter. I do have that sense of optimism too. And like fully vaxxed, feeling
Yeah.
so much better. But I guess we still have to think about the world situation and stuff.
Yeah.
Feeling a lot better though. Yeah, LA, I'm here. I've been here for like 4 years, I guess now.
Yeah.
So moved from Philly. It's great here.
I always consider you more of an East Coast person,
Mm-hmm.
artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm from the West Coast, but I've been out here for so long that now I get like not offended, but I'm like, oh, traitor, like when people move to, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm from there and I know
Uh-huh.
how nice it is. And really, I'm just a little bit jealous of people that move to LA because it's just the eternal land of sunshine, hikes, and cacti, and all the things that I really appreciate those things. You're really prolific, so this is going to be a joke asking you this, but is it so nice and everything's so perfect that you just don't feel creative anymore?
That's a good question. I guess before lockdown, I was on tour so much that I really didn't get a chance to make this feel like home. Being home and being here, I've been getting into more projects like film scoring and stuff like that, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is where that kind of stuff happens. This is the center of all that. So,
Yeah.
like, thinking more about melding work and creativity, like other people's creativity in like different fields with my sound, and just like collaboration in that way. I like the energy out here. I do miss Philly a lot because there was such community there and just jamming and hanging out late night style with other musicians. I do miss that vibe. How many years have you been in New York now?
A couple full on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still probably a Montrealer at heart just because I was there for
Mm-hmm.
so long. Like it's my Philly.
Yeah.
I miss it a lot. Like just the same thing you were saying. Like when you forge relationships over 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
those are irreplaceable and very different from the energy of newer relationships, even they're great,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there isn't the same kind of history. I don't have a tremendous musical collaborative situation here. The work I've done in New York has like all been alone, and it's usually like tinkering away on something solo, just like alone
Mm-hmm.
for hours. And so I have this more aloneness in New York. I have friends that I hang out with, but when I think of playing music with people, the setting is Montreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Jeremy play on your new record, right?
Yeah.
How did you record it?
I wrote this music for a dance piece, and he wrote a bunch of stuff for the dance piece too. We worked together on it. And then these pieces that found their way onto my new album, like he was just involved in them so early.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so locked in that way where you can, like,
Yeah.
you really need to play them together. So I thought I was recording them without him. I went out west and recorded in a friend's studio, and we were making like modulating click tracks and stuff for things
Oh,
that
wow.
sped up and slowed down. And it just felt so weird to do that. And so I just kind of canned the whole thing and called it a demo. And then, so we ended up doing it together a couple months later in Montreal,
Oh,
actually.
cool.
Yeah.
Is that where he's living?
He actually lives in Australia now.
Oh, that's right. So he came to Montreal and you guys recorded it together.
I think he was over here for something else. It's a little bit much to just hop on a plane
Right.
from Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Especially to record on somebody's album.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been listening to your stuff a lot, and it's like, it's funny, like actually now that I have an infant, and the situation is so new, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for like, oh, what music also feels like it makes sense for like new ears. And
Mm-hmm.
your stuff is some of the stuff that I've decided like works really well for this small human.
Love it.
Because
Love it.
the tonality of I don't know, there's just something, for lack of a better word, like music boxy about
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have this great friend and she was pregnant. She was like 10 days late and she had this idea. She's like, can I invite a few friends and my aunt over and we'll order pizza and you'll play for us outside because I have a little porch and then a yard. So they sat outside the yard and she's like, can you play? Because maybe it will induce the baby. It'll like encourage the baby to come out and like be in the world. And so I did. And then I let her sit down at the harp. And with the harp, you lean the harp back on your shoulder and then you're kind of pressed up against it. Like her belly was pressed up against the harp so she could feel the vibrations. And I let her play it, like just some glissandos and stuff. And then she went home that same night and her water broke 2 hours later. Isn't that crazy?
They should put that on the list when you Google how to induce labor, because my stuff was just like, eat some dates, do the stairs. I was having a boring time compared to a harp concert. Get your harpist friend to let you straddle their harp and feel the vibrations.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that.
My mom is a harpist too, and I think about like being in the womb, and I was that way, you know, like she was pregnant with me and I was absorbing all the
Yeah.
So maybe her new son will want to play the harp. You never know.
My mom is also a musician, and
Cool.
I had a real connection with my mom with music. It was actually her that kind of got me into improvising at a super young age. It was like a good way of getting me to play, to hold my attention for longer. Did you do anything like that with your mom, music-wise?
No, not improvising. My mom was like,
or even just playing together.
Yeah, like little harp ensembles and stuff, and we still do. Every Christmas we play together. But so what instrument does your mom play?
She plays the flute. She's a really great flautist and she's played it forever, but she's one of these people that's like always learning new things, and you know, she takes marimba classes, and she has all these,
she sounds so cool.
Yeah, she does all these things. And because I started when I was a kid, I started as the Suzuki method. And so you're generally, I think your parent learns with you. So she also picked up the violin back then. But I wonder if being a kid in the womb, hearing your mother creating those sounds, if that actually does do something to your ear. I don't know the science behind that.
I just read about some technology that they have where they could record like the sounds of the baby, like tones of how it feels in the womb or something. Whoa. And it just came out. That's wild.
Yeah.
Hey Talkhouse listeners, we want to tell you about Sound Opinions, a podcast that brings you explorations of the latest in the music scene and historical perspectives on the current trends in music. Each week, join Jim DeRogatis and Greg Kot as they dissect new albums and revisit some of the classics. They also interview artists from every background and genre you can think of and share some of their under-the-radar favorites. These guys have spent over 20 years hosting this show, and it has been incredibly fun to listen to how they're continuously keeping themselves in learning mode as music continues to evolve. And they also strongly believe that everyone should let out their inner music critic, so their community is a valuable place to connect with other music lovers. Check out Sound Opinions today on your favorite podcast app.
I love your record, by the way. It's very, very beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank
you. So gorgeous. I love how you sing too. It just sounds like a siren song or something. Just like so beautiful, like a cave, or I don't know, coming from a cave. Just gorgeous. I love it.
I wanted to make something more gorgeous this time. Like my previous stuff, that's not like where it lives, but I want, like, that was kind of wanting to come out. And I want to go even further into that zone. You know, it's funny because that really wasn't my energy before with solo violin music. I don't know. It's hard to go back and remember, like, oh, what was I thinking and feeling when I made my first album, or what? We were different people then.
I remember talking to you when you were making the first one and how you didn't want to use effects or anything like that. You wanted it to just have that natural reverb from that water tower, right? Didn't you?
Oh yeah. I did use little bits of reverb and delay here and there, like I always do. But yeah, that water tower, the Teufelsberg, creepy as all. Like the coolest place I've ever recorded for sure, and it has just like the wildest, drippiest sound. Like I'm thinking, what would happen to you in there? It would be crazy.
Whoa! We could not get this thing up there.
No,
climbing up.
Climbing up there. Also, you have to like break in through a fence. I don't know what it's like now. Maybe it's different, but violin case is small. That was like the most dangerous thing I've ever done with my instrument.
That's so cool though.
Yeah.
So for this one, did you have pedals that you were using?
You know, my violin sound has pretty much just remained the same over the years. I don't use pedals on an album. I used like studio gear, some vintage, like, cool. I can't remember the box that I was freaking out on at my friend's studio, but it was all like really 80s crazy, like reverb and delay and chorus and flange. So there's some of that stuff, but the violin itself sounds the way it does. You know, it's a little delayed, it's a little affected, but I just don't loop anything. That's the thing. And I love the way you loop. Like, it doesn't even
Oh,
sound like
thanks.
loop music. It's just like as it's performed. But
Yeah.
the thing that I added beyond the vocals, which is something I can do live, which is really exciting now, which takes a lot of practicing, is I play the bass synth on a foot pedal.
Oh, wow.
Like the foot pedal synth, it looks like the organ pedals, but it's actually a MIDI controller, but it's playing a Moog Mini Tour, which is like the smaller version of the Taurus, because the Taurus is insane and like I can't carry that. I'm not doing any like bass shredding. It's all droney bass, like whole notes, half notes at best.
Hmm.
Because I'm also often singing on top, and there's only so much
Wow.
person can do. Some people are way more coordinated than I am, but I'm maxing out at that. What do you do live? Like, because
Mm,
you're singing quite a bit now.
no singing.
No?
No, no,
But
I don't.
there's voice on your album in 2018.
Yes, you're right.
I remember the year. My brain is so fried. There's too many words in the title.
I know.
Hundreds of days, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I do sing on some songs here and there, but I do not like my own voice. I feel like there's nothing special about it at all. So mainly I just use vocals as texture.
That's exactly how I use my voice. I say that exact same thing. Like, it's a synthesizer.
I could never sing live in front of people. I feel like that would be so terrifying.
But you should someday, because doing it and preparing to do it opens your whole body up. You have to embrace it, and then you have to like get really, really real with your breath, because when you're playing vigorously on your harp or like your violin or what, like we play these vigorous instruments, right?
Right, right.
And you're singing, like we sing these long synthy vocal lines. Like I was hearing,
Mhm.
like I love that record, by the way, and it was like, oh, we're using our
Thanks.
voices in a really similar way. They're like long melodies. It's cool because you have to be so good with your breath. You have to take
Hmm.
giant breaths and then measure out how much air you're using, which is
Yeah.
something you don't think about. I don't know about you, but I don't really breathe that well when I'm playing violin, because
Mm-mm.
I've never like had to think about it. But when you have to do like an 8-bar phrase,
Right.
it's a great thing to make yourself do. Do it.
I have so many friends who are such great singers that it's kind of like seeped into my brain, you know? It's their thing. Like, Mary, just listen to them, you know? Enjoy.
I know how you feel. That's a little bit of that old fraud syndrome.
Yep. That old friend.
Which I won't go into, because let's not even give it the time of day, but women
Right.
and fraud syndrome. My God.
Hmm.
Let's hope there's a generation of women and young girls that don't have it.
Hmm. Yeah, who knows? Maybe like
Who knows?
TikTok and stuff has opened up people different kinds of like voices and stuff. Maybe imperfection is more celebrated in ways too, where people are just like, this is what I've got.
Yeah.
Showtime.
Are you making more albums right now?
I don't know how much I'm supposed to reveal.
Right.
I don't know, but I do
You're
have
working on something.
I do have some archival like stuff that has only come out on cassette coming out in the fall. We're working on putting that together, like a compilation of old stuff.
Yeah.
And I just got 2 film scores. And
Oh, that's
so
great.
for the first time ever, so I'm going to be digging into that this year. I want to hear more about how you were working with dancers for this record.
It was a really lucky scenario. This amazing choreographer in Canada, like we were put in touch years ago to do a duet together. She's in her 60s. She doesn't actually dance live
Oh,
anymore. This was kind of the last time she danced in public, and she was asked to do this. It's like a big show. It's called Fall for Dance North. It's in Toronto. And she said, I'll only do it if you pair me up with somebody like really like young and dynamic and, female with like a, maybe like she kind of described me like somebody who has one foot in the rock world and maybe one foot like, and somebody in that meeting was like, oh, let me call Sarah Neufeld or whatever. and I was like, Peggy Baker, she's a Canadian dance icon. So
wow.
her and I did this really fucking fun duet a few years ago. And then after that, she said, would you do my next full length piece for my company? And so that was a no-brainer for me. And it was super
Wow.
fun. And the cool thing about like every choreographer, obviously, and every musician work differently, right? But she choreographs in silence. And so when I came into the mix, there was already all this movement vocabulary. Okay, so this is this piece. And so there's 4 people in this one. Oh, this is a duet. And we were in the Banff Center of the Arts in the mountains in Canada. And I just had my, my pedal board, and I had speakers or whatever. And I was in there in this beautiful dance studio, just like, okay, I'm just going to play what I feel when I see this movement. So it's kind of like film scoring, but like so tangible, and just, it was so evocative for me. Like literally, I think the first time I saw each of the pieces, the main melodic themes, they were there already.
Wow.
Because it was almost just like, oh, and oh yeah, the last brick goes in here. Like it was already all of the feelings, and there was so much artistic material and everything just kind of hanging in front of me. It was so easy to start the ideas, and of course like hard to finish them, of course, but that was a really fun process for me. And so that all those pieces became the pieces on the album. And then there was a whole bunch of other stuff that was more soundtracky, like noise stuff and improv stuff and stuff that Jared did on his own. Like he did this amazing almost metal drum solo at one point.
Wow.
We toured it, and we were part of the show. There were like video projections, there were hanging canvases with these really beautiful paintings that would get like torn down. There was us, we were on a riser. At one point I walked out and into the spotlight, and I played the solo violin piece, and then there's As If It's My Dream or something behind me, this really intense dance piece going on. Cool piece.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was what I was really focusing on right up until, like, we were doing our last show of, there was supposed to be more, but that was the last one of kind of like a big effort right before COVID hit. And so I just feel grateful that I was really kind of doing I felt like it was my strongest work. And the show itself, I was so proud of it. Like I love touring and being in a band and everything, but being in dance world, it has a totally different energy.
So these pieces came from improvisation that you were doing. Would the pieces change every night kind of slightly, or?
No, because once they became what they were set in stone. The whole piece was really concise, the whole show. What about your stuff? Does it morph?
It morphs, yeah. That's what I love about it. And honestly, like I've never really played my stuff with anyone else, So I have the freedom to just like really let what I'm thinking about dictate how the song is going to be presented that night or something, you know what I mean? It changes, and sometimes it sounds a lot different from what's recorded, but the foundation is still there.
You'll play the melody, and I mean, your music is so hypnotic, and I could totally see of course, you would do your rendition of it in the moment.
Just do what I want.
Yeah.
Total freedom.
I can't do that. Like I do that in like micro ways with like how a phrase feels, or maybe I'll stretch out something, or maybe add another repetition, but I don't have the depth of layering, or maybe I'm just like anal about it or something. But your music really inspires me. Like, by the way, if you ever wanted to make music with me, I would meet you anywhere in the world, and we could just like.
I would meet you anywhere in the world.
Yeah, let's just meet anywhere.
I'm gonna be in New York kind of soon. Yeah, we should meet up.
Yeah.
I would really love that. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
We've always been grown-ups that knew each other, but I feel like we were kids like I've known you when I was a kid. I guess we were kind of kid-like when we met. I try to remember what that was. It was like I feel like it was the first time Arcade Fire played in Philly. It was like that amazing church basement, and you played Wake Up with us.
No, I met you guys in 2004 at in Columbia, Missouri.
It wasn't even the church basement.
No,
I suck.
I was living with my parents, and I was visiting my friend Allie, who lived in Columbia, and Allie and I were going to move to Philly in January. And I was at your show, and then Allie and I started to talk to Richard and Jeremy, and we were like, yeah, we're going to move to Philly. And they were like, we're playing in Philly in January. Mary, you should play with us. And I had never played on a stage anything that was not written down.
I remember that.
It was terrifying and so exciting.
That was super fun. We talked that night, and I remember you saying like that you hadn't played with a band on stage or whatever before. You were great. That was so fun.
Then I got hooked. Then I just got totally addicted to it, and I have been on tour ever since.
Our band was the gateway drug to your adult
Yeah.
life. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I think you would have found it without us.
I don't
But
know.
I'm happy that I was there.
It was very cool, like a very happy memory for me.
I have another broken memory of a
Mm.
hangout in Philly, like recently at an after show where I played solo at one of the town hall shows that we did at this crazy place in Philly. And I remember us like being in a car, like we and
You and me?
yeah, me and you.
Oh,
And
oh.
it was a crazy night. You don't remember
Mm,
it. I know
no.
why you don't remember it. It was a crazy night. There was somebody from my yoga studio there. Like it was all sorts of
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah.
Was it
Anyways,
fun? Did we have a
I
great
was
time?
gonna no, I don't remember the outcome and I was gonna ask you what happened. But then
Oh,
I
broken.
remembered actually you were having even more fun than I was. So yeah,
Oh
you're the wrong
my
person to ask.
gosh. You know what? I've had a lot of fun. It's a fun life. My memory of seeing you last was in New Hampshire.
Right, at that lovely empty place.
Yeah, no one was there and it was fun.
I've played a few times at that venue and it's
Hmm.
always amazing and so beautiful and no one comes. It's like, sorry,
Yeah.
and I don't want to like name the names that like I don't, I feel
No.
bad saying that, but like it's happened multiple times.
Yeah. But the programming was really great
The
and
programming is incredible.
yeah.
You look at their calendar and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
I would come here every day.
Yeah. And the food was good. I remember there was like a good restaurant
The
there.
food. This is
Yeah.
a good memory loss conversation. People
Yeah.
listening to this podcast will be like, and then they just went on about like stuff they couldn't remember forever. They never figured it out.
Oh man. So what's coming up next for do you have any like touring plans or is that like way far away?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm supposed to be thinking about it, but I don't even know how to
Hmm.
think about it because, you know, the world is upside down.
Yeah.
And it's also funny because like I'm putting out this material, albeit it's a little different on the
Hmm.
album, but I toured the original material of this a ton with the dance show. So I not that I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to tour it, but at least it has been played a lot and I feel really lucky to have performed it so much right before everything changed because I don't know what I'll be able to do live. I'm sure something will come up someday. My manager asked me, "So, what kind of touring would you like to do?" And I'm like, "I don't even what is that question?" And also now having a small infant, I'm like, "How does that what?" Like I can't even fold that laundry, let alone
Uh-huh.
leave the house. I'm sure there will be other tours that I will be a part of, like with bands, and that's easier for me to. But you know, as a soloist, how much goes into doing a solo tour. Like you are on top of everything, and it's all you, and it's just like so much. You do a lot of solo touring, right?
I do. I recorded this last record with Neil Halstead from Slowdive in Cornwall, and we were talking about touring together because he plays a lot of guitar on the record and synth.
Mm,
And I was like, wow, this would be the first time I would really like tour my own solo music with someone else, which I think that would be very, very interesting.
so
And if
fun.
not Neil, then like another guitar player probably,
Hmm.
but that would be really interesting to have a band.
I've done that a lot with drummers, and especially compared to the isolation of touring completely alone. Like when you play in Europe, do you do train tours?
My last touring, I guess I've done there solo has been like flying in.
Like how that works with the harp? Like
Yeah.
everybody must ask you that, but like I have massive cases, but your case must be so massive. It's
Yeah.
like bigger than
Mhm.
you.
I own a harp in Europe, so I don't have to bring it on a plane ever. My harp in Europe lives in Prague and it lives at a backline company. And so the driver, the van, and the harp all come together.
So smart. Did your harp decide it liked Prague better than say
Like Paris or something. I refuse to live in Paris. No, it
yeah.
it moved like I guess it was born in France. I bought it from a woman and I was like, this would solve my problems because it's a really big deal to rent someone else's harp and to ask
Yeah.
them if you could
Yeah.
take it on the road and put it in a van and stuff. It's like because people
Hmm.
usually just have like one harp for their whole lives, you know? And so
Yeah.
this I just won this fellowship in Philly that gave me a chunk of money and it was a life changer, and I was like, I'm going to invest in getting a harp in Europe so I never have to ask another stranger to let me take their baby on the road, So I bought this one and then we moved it to Prague to live at the Backline company.
That's great. Congratulations, by the way. I read that.
Thank
I was
you.
brushing up on my Mary Lattimore facts. I looked at your Wikipedia. I was like, is there anything I should know?
Thanks. I have to look at your Wikipedia.
Oh, don't.
I need to visit your Wikipedia. I wish I could change the photo on that Wikipedia. I gotta get somebody else to dig in there and change that horrible photo.
I don't know if it still says I'm vegetarian or vegan or whatever, but I thought that I was like, I mean, it's such a small detail, but I'm like, really? Does that it's not true, and B, why is that on there? Like, it feels
Who wrote that?
like I wanted you to say that I was and I'm like in the background eating a hamburger and going like
Like, I wonder who wrote that, like who decided to include that detail.
I don't even look vegetarian. Look at these red cheeks. They're not existing solely on lentils.
I actually am going to be in New York again in the later part of the year because we're planning a tour, which is like a huge thing to think about now during COVID, but it's in the works. And I've actually been hosting a few shows in my yard just so people can practice playing in front of people again, like having like 20 people over in the yard all distance wearing masks and stuff, and it's been really fun. So that's what we did last night, and it was very successful. So if you ever come to LA, you can play on my porch.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I'm glad you're rolling through, and yeah, we'll find a time in life someday.
Let's do it.
To play music together.
Well, Sarah, it was great to talk to you. I could talk forever, seriously. Like,
I wonder what the headline of our conversation is going to be, because I went through. I'm like,
two women who can't really remember very much,
but it seemed like fun. They had
fun.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse podcast, and thanks to Mary Lattimore and Sarah Neufeld for chatting. This episode was produced by Melissa Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. If you liked what you heard, be sure and follow the podcast on your favorite service. See you next week.